Just coming in, there's some friendly faces up in the back. There's some room, so come squeeze in, make yourself comfortable. There's a few chairs in front as well. And we are going to get started. All right, this is phenomenal. So, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for coming. My name's Dave Valancourt. I'm on the board of the organization of Westside Neighbors. I live about 4 blocks from here, 5 blocks technically. I biked over. I love this neighborhood. I love this side of town. So I'm super grateful to be able to participate and help organize this event. I really appreciate you guys for being here tonight, as well as our amazing city staff and city councilwoman. To the Sluice, I don't know where Ryan went, but thank you so much to the Sluice for actually hosting and opening up this space for us tonight. This building is a pretty historic landmark on the west side, one of the oldest buildings, and so I feel like there's no better place than here to have a conversation. Brandy, I want to genuinely thank you for being here tonight, bringing the staff. It's because of you and your support that we've been able to make this happen. We asked, you showed up, and that's important. Again, thank you so much, guests from the city. We've got an eager crowd tonight that submitted a lot of questions through the survey that I've compiled to help, address the community's concerns, questions, and share knowledge. So, this is an amazing event in collaboration with both us as OWN, as well as the city. So, just a quick word about who OWN is, if you don't know. Actually, raise your hands. Who knows what OWN is? Right, about half the room. So you probably found out about the event through the organization Westside newsletter. We've been around since 1978 as a neighborhood association. We're not the city, we're a small nonprofit, a bunch of volunteers, about a half dozen, a couple of them at the table at the front. If you want to support OWN, buy a t-shirt to remind everybody that when you go out and about, that the Westside truly is the best side. We are about neighbors connecting neighbors and making sure that the West Side's voice gets heard by the people making decisions that affect our everyday lives. So before we get into the evening, just want to establish some ground rules so everybody knows what's going to happen, what to expect, and set a tone. This is not a complaint session, and it's not a chance to score any points. The West Side has real challenges, and the people in this room, including the people at the table, are the ones that have the ability to help solve them. And they don't know about the problems unless we tell them, and they don't understand how big of an issue they are unless we can talk about them together and share knowledge. So that's what we're here for. We're going to ask, I've got some hard questions tonight, and we want real answers and we want action, right? We want progress, and it does take time for progress to happen, but we're here to help send that direction forward. So, you're in the right place to be able to learn and to make an impact in our city, especially here in the West Side. This is your town hall. We organized it, but it belongs to all of you in the room. So again, thank you for being here. This is about your voice. So, as you may have seen, especially folks that are familiar with OWN, we put out a survey beforehand so that I could help curate questions to facilitate tonight. So I've got more questions than we probably have time for in an hour that I'm going to ask, bouncing around between the city staff and Councilwoman Williams. But based on that survey, we had about 20 responses, and what came back, the top issue, hands down, was homelessness and the unhoused, followed by traffic and pedestrian safety, including specific intersections that we'll get into tonight, and then parks and trails were also very closely behind in terms of top issues, especially with the Midland Trail. And then last but certainly not least, out of the 12 topics that people had to pick from, housing and affordability came up, particularly as hypothesis as the underlying causes. So we're going to work through those issues tonight, starting with the things you can see and touch, and then getting to some of the bigger structural challenges. So with that, before we get into the questions, I want to give Councilwoman Williams a few moments to share with the crowd, to introduce herself, and speak to, provide some opening remarks about who she is, what she's been doing, and then I'll pass it off to each of the 3 departments that we have here tonight, the 3 Ps. We've got Parks, Public Works, and Public Safety. So we're going to hear from all of them. Brandy, take it away.
Good evening. I'm going to try to minimize the noise we get from this microphone and the cord, but if you can hear it and I can't, just let me know. Good evening, my name is Brandy Williams. I am the City Council representative for District 3. And for those of you who haven't had the luxury of hearing my 30-second spiel, I was born and raised in Colorado Springs, so welcome any other natives. Jariah, if he was still here, also born and raised, so I know there's quite a few of us and there's a lot more. Jim, I think you might fit in that category as well, so welcome. Born and raised in Colorado Springs. My dad was born and raised in Colorado Springs, and my grandfather was born and raised in Colorado Springs. So my family has called Colorado Springs home for 125 years. And one of the best stories I like to tell about that is it was about 30,000 people when my dad was born. He's slightly older than the average father. And he would constantly tell us when we were growing up, no one's ever going to move to this city. It's 30,000 people. It's a quiet cow town. My dad was a rancher. It's never going to change. And I wish my dad bought more real estate, but he never believed that anyone was going to come here because he'd never lived anywhere else. He didn't know how absolutely beautiful and amazing Colorado Springs was. So now we all get to sit here, 500,000 of our closest friends, and do our best to keep Colorado Springs moving forward. One day at a time, one issue at a time, and I think we all share that love of Colorado Springs, or we would have picked up and hopefully have the ability to move someplace else, but if not, we're still going to work all this out together. So I ran for city council initially back in 2011, and I was elected at large to Colorado Springs City Council. At that time, we changed from 5 at large to 3 at large. So at that point in time, I had to run again 2 years later, and Keith King was elected to serve the citizens of District 3. And at that point in time, I went off and ended up being the city engineer down in Fountain. And then obviously most recently ran for District 3 in 2025 and sitting in the seat today. It's a little different than it was back in 2011. We transitioned the form of government. So for those of you that are newer to the city, we were a council manager form of government up until the election happened in 2010, and then our first strong mayor was elected in 2011. So we've been operating under that form of government for 15, 16 years. And it was a lot easier in 2011 for council to have initiatives and tackle issues because I love all you guys, but staff hadn't really changed their view of city council. So city council still had essentially the same authority that they did the day before, but 15 years later, it's definitely different. There's been a marked change between essentially what's in the mayor's purview and how city council operates. So that's been a drastic difference. It's taken some getting used to because I really did love that hands-on approach. Memorial Hospital was one of those things that we tackled and had the ability to take it to fruition. And in reading a lot of the questions, they're, okay, you're the representative here, and what are you gonna do? And I think the what are you gonna do has transitioned more in the last 15 years into the mayor's office. So I'm excited that we're gonna have a new chief of staff on board, and we'll be able to really dig into how we partner with the mayor's office to get that all done. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to run into that a few times tonight, I think. Yeah, thank you so much, Brandy. I think before I hand it over to city staff, I think you said something really important when you talked about like the history of the strong mayor system coming to be, and talking about cost of living and pay and salaries can be a little taboo in our culture. But does anybody know what Brandy gets paid as to be on city council? A few people. I think it nets to about 26 cents. That's assuming it's a 40-hour week volunteer role. It's a $6,200 $6,250 a year stipend. So
I remember helping negotiate that in 1980 for childcare.
For childcare, 1980 was a wage.
With childcare.
So when you think about responsibilities of city government and expectations on city council, just keep that in mind when and whether that's something we want to change or not as citizens. because obviously somebody has to pay for that. Anyways, that said, why don't you're closest, so we're gonna start with police department and just run down the line, brief intros, who you are, what your department does, and one or two things that maybe you're working on that might be relevant to the West Side. Have questions?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Shannon Snuggs. I'm the commander of the Gold Hill Division, which is the southwest part of town. So figure we're covering everything south of Fillmore and west of Union. The Peak Station, which most people probably relate to the HOT team and the downtown area response team, are also out of my division. Been with CSPD for 22 years. Worked the west side back when the Gold Hill Division didn't even exist as a building, so I've seen the things change and well aware and working with the homeless and our city's homeless and housing teams to address the concerns you guys are looking at.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Rosenoff. I'm in my 32nd year here, Colorado Springs. I have almost previously 7 years with the California Highway Patrol. I currently serve as the Deputy Chief over the Patrol Bureau. I have worked in all of the patrol divisions except for Falcon. When we say work or assigned, we usually mean a year. I did work there for 3 months. I also was the special event coordinator in terms of, we usually have about 75 events that have some type of police presence as well. I also was in charge of the internal affairs section. Let's see, what's relevant to the West Side? Well, everything is relevant to the West Side. I consider the whole community the place that I serve. And of course, we try to enforce state law, city law, and of course, that would include the ordinances that were passed by city council or the mayor. And those people are in those places because they were voted in by our entire community.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Becker. I'm the Parks Maintenance and Operations Manager representing the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services Department this evening. So a lot of the questions that came up pertain to maintenance and operations. So I'm representing our acting director, Kim King, is also here this evening. She can possibly chime in on any other questions that are outside of my purview. I came to the city in 2007. Spent a couple of years here, went to go work at Colorado Springs Utilities in the Water Conservation Department for a number of years, and then came back here for a couple different roles. I've been in my role as Park Maintenance and Operations Manager for a little over 3 years, about 3.5 years. Tremendous responsibility, got about 100 full-time staff. I think relevant to this area of town, there's lots of parks over here, as you all know. We've got a lot of neighborhood parks. Vermaho, we've got Bancroft, we've got Thorndale, we've got Palante, we've got Charis, a number of those parks. We've got the Midland Trail area. We also have a special improvement maintenance district that you may know about. So that's along Colorado Avenue, 24th to 27th that we manage. It's a 3-block historic district. We have a full-time staff member there that maintains that district. It's about a block either way on the north side and south side over to Pikes Peak. And Concharis on the west side. So, yep, good to be here.
I'll steal it for one more second because I was so excited to have other natives here that I completely forgot to say thank you for all of this. Thank you all for coming. And Councilwoman Nancy Henjum has also joined us down in the front, so I wanted to acknowledge her.
Thank you. How long is this court? It just gets longer and longer. Okay. Yeah. My name is Richard Milady. I'm also a native, although I grew up in Cimarron Hills. I love the west side, but I grew up in Cimarron Hills as a kid. But I'm the Public Works Director for the city. And let me tell you a little, I'm just going to quickly go through the Public Works Department divisions and programs so you get an understanding. And then Gail's going to introduce herself, but I'll just tell you, Gail is the Deputy Public Works Director and City Engineer, and she's going to talk about some of the projects I think that there's some concerns about. So I'll do this quickly. So Public Works consists of operations and maintenance, which is paving, street maintenance, snow plowing, those sorts of things, the maintenance of our streets and right-of-ways. City Engineering, which is the large capital projects. Gail oversees city engineering. Those will be roadway projects. Gail's going to talk a little bit about that. Also bridge and other bridge maintenance programs. We have the Stormwater Enterprise, which is the stormwater infrastructure, maintenance and operation of that within our city. traffic engineering, and I know there's some questions about traffic, and that's going to play here today. I know there's some questions about traffic. Transit, now Metro Transit is also in Public Works. We also have forestry, which is part of operations and maintenance that takes care of the street trees. Another division I think is, another program that's going to have some questions is code enforcement and neighborhood services. So code enforcement obviously enforces all the codes and code violations. Neighborhood services, the camp cleanup, works with the hot team and police and fire to work with those cleanups and the major cleanups. And then finally we have the parking enterprise, and there may be some questions about parking that we can answer. So I think I got most of that. We've got a few more things in there, but there's some more. Utility locating probably won't come up. So.
You just answer what you know, you guys handle a lot. And Gail, you're going to take a few extra minutes too, because I know you have to leave a bit. You've got some exciting things, things to share with the neighborhood.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. And first of all, I want to thank you all for coming. It's important to have our residents have input on what's going on in our community. As I mentioned, my name is Gail Sturdivant. I'm the City Engineer and Deputy Public Works Director. And then I work really closely, so all city engineering reports to me, work very closely with the traffic engineering division and also parking, and coordinate pretty heavily with transit as well, really looking about how we can deliver mobility holistically to our community. So even though everyone has a distinct function and job, we need to look at it together in a bigger picture. So that's what I do, but I wanted just to jump into a couple questions I think are hot on folks' minds, and then I can take a couple more before I have to depart, so my apologies for that. I heard a big topic, everyone wants to know what's going on with the upcoming Colorado Avenue project, or the folks participated in the Midland Trail Corridor study a few years ago. That study had a lot of great recommendations that built on a lot of critical planning efforts that had happened within the West Side previously. We are going to be launching a project here very shortly in the next few weeks. That it's going to lay out the project in 2 phases, and it's really going to be based on the results of that Midland Corridor study. Phase 1, you will see us implement a lane restriping or repurposing from Limit Street through 30th Street. That will take what you see today from 4 lanes down to 3 lanes. And what that means is you now have 2 lanes going west, 2 lanes going east. You'll have 1 lane in each east and west direction, but what's going to be added is a center turn lane and a buffer for that parking area. And historically, when you go and look at these types of conversions on a street that's laid out the way Colorado Avenue is, that you can potentially realize up to a 29% reduction in crashes. So really an overall goal to improve safety. So that's what they're going to be looking at doing. The reason why I say it's a demonstration project, because that is just a portion of what's going to be going on. The rest of the demonstration project is going to be using flexible delineators to really isolate that old Colorado City area to basically prove to see with what's recommended in the study would really work and be viable in the historic downtown or historic old Colorado City area. So it would be, you're going to see flexible delineators that are really meant to show where parking would be moved into the future, where curb lines could be moved into the future, with the lane reconfiguration with the turn lanes. And through this demonstration project, we're going to be gathering tons of data. It's going to be focused on making sure we still have the capacity in the roadway, operations at our intersections, also to make sure we're not introducing unexpected safety issues, and really trying to achieve that goal of crash reductions and safer mobility. At the same time, is it going to be providing the opportunities that are anticipated, particularly in the old Colorado City area, to increase business vitality in the community areas, and the mobility and accessibility. So we'll be doing that project and gathering it. But what we really need to do is prove to make sure these concepts that were in that study are going to work. The traffic volumes on this corridor are on the high side for these kinds of implementations, so we need to gather that data to see if it's really going to work. But we're not just going to be doing this in a vacuum. There's going to be tons of opportunities for you to start engaging on this project through this demonstration. Kicking off at Territory Days, you'll see we'll have some kind of activity or booth there We're going to have a website up soon and open surveys to be able to get feedback from you early on and all the way through this demonstration project. The demonstration project, the duration of it is somewhat to be determined. It could be 6 months, it could be up to 2 years. And the reason why I say that is sometimes putting these measures in place need to be in place for a longer period of time to actually gather the right kind of data to make sure it makes sense. And then the intent is, at the end, is to come and have a harder construction project in the old Colorado City area to put the appropriate measures in place to improve that mobility in the community and accessibility I think is desired. So that's my overview on that particular project. It is funded, it is planned. We have both federal funding and funding through the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. So we are ready to just kick that off. The team's planning ahead. We don't have a consultant on board that we'll be working with as a partner, but you will see activities coming here shortly, so stay tuned. We'd love to see you participate. And then you want me to jump into the Uinta questions while I'm here?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so one of the questions I saw was about Uinta Street there by Thorndale Park at 23rd and 24th Street. We actually just recently completed a safety audit in that area, and we're going to be implementing some kind of traffic calming and pedestrian refuge, either doing bump outs or a refuge, see what fits in that area, to really help pedestrians move across Uinta Street. We also, through this study, realized that once you get west of 21st Street, people like to, step on the gas a little bit too much. So we're actually going to put dynamic speed signs in place as well. And we've had very good success with putting those in, and they're somewhat a passive but measure to do traffic calming, but we find them to be very effective. We're anywhere to 2 to 6 miles per hour average reduction in the corridors, depending on whether they're implemented. So those are the two things I know you wanted me to hit.
Yeah. We're gonna play the sharing zigzag game. I'm gonna stay over here for now anyway, since it's public works questions for the next couple. Yeah, we'll figure out this awkward microphone thing, but this will work for now. So actually, I want to ask you a quick follow-up question. Is this the first time the public's hearing of this exciting announcement with the corridor study, or has this been announced yet?
So the Midland Corridor Study had a lot of public engagement, but it was really wrapped up at the end of 2022. And then with the results of that study, we put it on the PPRTA ballot so that we're going to have the funding to be able to go through and do it. And so what you don't know is I've also been trying to get federal funding to help us to get enough funds together for it. So I think this is probably first you're hearing about the launch of the actual project. So it's soft-launched. Stay tuned, you'll hear more here in the next couple of weeks.
Well, that's awesome. I just want to point out that, it's excitement.
Gail covered this, but I just want to make sure everybody kind of hears it, maybe make sure everybody heard it. So as part of these projects, and I think a lot of you know because you probably participated in these, there's going to be, like you said, a website, there's going to be the opportunity to provide feedback, and then there will be other things like public meetings or other opportunities to, depending on what the consultants think is necessary to get that public input. So I want to make sure people know that Gail said this, but there's more and more opportunity to put feedback in. So.
And those are on the list, right? But we will, but there'll be opportunities to come in here with groups about their input for this project as well.
Yeah, no, this is great. I think it's just an important reminder. Things take time to happen. The study was done in 2022, you mentioned. Working to get federal funding, and funding cycles takes years, and this was great because as I was preparing these questions, I talked to Brandy this afternoon. She's like, actually, I think Gail's going to be able to share something about this, because I had a follow-up question that was a little harder, like, Brandy, what the heck are you going to do to make sure this actually happens? Let's stop talking about it, let's be about it. So here we are, it's happening. I'm really excited as well. So another question for the Public Works Department here is, so this again comes from the survey results, so thank you again for participating. A resident who voted for the OCC Development Authority, and we're going to speak about that a bit further later as well, what the OCCDA is if you hadn't heard of it. But a resident who voted for it told us that the Christmas market experience made them regret that vote, specifically because of the parking chaos and what they felt like was disregard for residents, especially residents in very close proximity to the west side, OCC downtown area. So the question is, are event organizers currently required to submit and execute a neighborhood parking impact plan as a condition of permit approval? And if not, can you speak to anything to the similar or how we will address this?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So when an event happens, they do submit for a permit, for a special activity permit. That it's actually reviewed for several departments. It includes Public Works. It actually comes through the Parks Department. It includes Colorado Springs Police Department and Fire Department. And I'm sure there are others that are on that as well. They do have to look at the parking. It's about the parking configuration, making sure you have ADA stalls and have a general plan. I think what you saw with the Christmas market, I mean, we should be very thankful, was super successful. And I think even more successful than was even envisioned, that there was really no way to plan for that amount of impact. But I think the organizers of the event know that and can plan better in the future. So the short answer is yes, parking is considered along with many other factors as it's going to have an impact on the community.
Yeah, go ahead, Brandy.
Another reason I run for office is I have no problem taking the arrows, and we actually voted for that when it came through on LART, so I don't want to have OCC, DDA taking the fall for that one, or anyone equating the two of those things, so please don't think that those are linked. That actually came through LART and then eventually the City Council, so I don't want that to leave this room, that Christmas market and any parking issues associated with that had anything to do with that or the OCC DDA organization.
Thanks, Brandy. Actually, let's see. Actually, I'm gonna bring it back and then we'll go forward. See if this works. That's all the direct public works questions we have for now. There's things that I'd like to.
Can I, before you pass it,
Yes.
I think I got a pretty loud voice.
Okay, before it.
I just wanted to share real quick for parking, because I thought this was great information, I brought it. I just wanted to share, there's been a lot of investment from Parking Enterprise in this area, and I just wanted to kind of share that because there were concerns about parking and capacity, and so this was interesting. I just had some numbers pulled I wanted to share. The Parking Enterprise owns and operates 4 parking lots, which are the public parking lots kind of in and around. You probably know them. And I just wanted to share with you some of the investment they put in there. The one of the lots, okay, yeah, I can do this here. So the lot that's on, I think, 26th Street with Pikes Peak is behind it. That had a retaining wall that was failing. We just fixed that last year through Parking Enterprise. It was $1.4 million of investment there. We repaved those lots for just shy of $300,000. We put in some benches, worked with the OCC to put benches and trash cans. We did some Wayfair signage, and then we used forestry to do some tree cutting and removal to help. So actually, in the last, I thought this was just a good stat, in the last 3 years, we've put in $1.9 million in investment in the parking infrastructure at OCC. So I just want to share that because we're committed, and Parking Enterprise, by the way, falls under Gail's purview, and so we're putting a lot of investment in OCC, and I just want to get that news out because sometimes people don't hear about the investments that are put in there. So.
And I asked some about that parking lot. The parking lot that's directly up 26th Street has not been paved.
Yeah.
And as you go up 26th Street, it's getting major potholes in it now. This is one of my...
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We paved the 3 and that one's next. Yes.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, you're exactly right. Yes.
I think it's important, thank you for sharing that, because something that I was also talking, go ahead.
I just said that was a great point, so thank you for saying
Yeah, thanks for providing that clarification. And that, thank you also for bringing that information up, because something I was actually talking to Brandy about, and I know I've heard from others, both through the survey, where the sentiment was really, I felt that sentiment strongly in the survey, and from others that the West Side often feels like the neglected, like redheaded stepchild, and feels like we don't always get the resources that we deserve. And are equitable from the city. So I think hearing that information helps us understanding context. And I'll also say, and I'll give a plug for the group Hey Neighbor, which used to be Kono. If you haven't heard of it, great group. I attended last fall. It was a 12-week course, I believe, where every department came and spoke to us over the 12 weeks for it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I learned a ton, especially around how much the city does with very little money, especially compared to a cities our size, both in population and square mileage. So on a per capita basis, we have a very small pie to spread around to address all the resources. So in my eyes, we're never going to have all the resources we need. Is that an excuse? Not necessarily, but there are things we can do about that, and that's again part of this conversation tonight. So that said, I'm going to shift over to parks and talk a bit about the parks and the trails that make this neighborhood, this side of town, what it is, because our survey showed that, and Gail, thank you so much again for coming. Really appreciate you spending your time. And so, you know, some of the survey results showed that the parks and the trails and the trailheads are under stress from multiple directions at once. And so I want to start with something specific that happened recently, and some friends of mine that were running actually downtown, not necessarily on the west side, brought up and were like, what the heck is going on? What's up with this porta potty issue? So the question here is, so porta potties were removed recently from west side and actually trailheads throughout the city with what was felt like no community notice. Some residents even noted in the survey that had they known about this, they would have organized fundraising efforts to keep them in place. So question is, was that a budget decision, a maintenance decision, policy choice? Like, can you share a bit about that? And is there anything for that to be reconsidered?
All right, I guess if it's one thing that I've become an expert in my 3 years, it's portable restrooms, permanent restrooms in my role as Parks Maintenance and Operations Manager. I will start by saying we recognize our community wants restrooms, and I also have recognized that they're the most heavily vandalized aspect of our parks infrastructure. It's an unfortunate reality of what we deal with, both with porta potties being burned down and restrooms being vandalized. So I just wanted to kind of share that reality of what we face. To the question, the short answer, it was a budget decision. Our department was tasked this year with coming up with a $3.1 million budget cut, and we had to work across all different departments and divisions within our department to come up with some of those choices that certainly we don't like making. We tried to flex it out, we tried to spread it out so the impact wasn't in one certain area. To my knowledge, we haven't removed more than 2 restrooms, portable restrooms at trailheads on this side of town. There were some other parks that had restrooms, portable restrooms that were removed. So that was, both of those restrooms were at Red Rock Canyon Open Space, to my knowledge, 31st Street and Sand Creek parking lot, I think it's called. But if there's others that I'm not aware of, I can certainly look into that. But those are the only 2 that I am aware of. So.
There's one down off of 26th Street. You guys actually opened it up, which I think is a very good decision because the transient camps that are camping out over there, closing that down is a good idea.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, part of our decision is, when we took them out, is the ones that were maybe the most heavily vandalized and the ones that in our neighborhood parks, we typically don't have restrooms in neighborhood parks. Our philosophy over design development over the years is neighborhood parks are a 10-minute walk from typically a house or less, and that's not part of our design in neighborhood parks. That's not always the case, but in most of those neighborhood parks, that is the case.
And quick pause, thank you to Gratitude, heard about the tech issues and just brought us wireless mics. Wow. So, hold on 1 second. Let's see if I'm okay. We're going to test. 30-second interlude.
Sorry.
Maybe.
There you go.
We'll just pass them, we'll let folks, you still get to share, but you just don't get to share it. It's like There we go. One for each department. Just about, and then bring it together. All right, this is amazing. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you. Give it up for gratitude. Thank you guys. A great alcohol-free bar hangout place that is just on the other side of Story Coffee, correct? Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So, all right, great question about parks. I also want to just remind folks a couple things. One, these are the folks, you should have some time after before they kick us out. If you want to talk further, ask direct questions, or follow up with them, contact information is available online. And then we're here as a resource for you guys. We are all volunteers, so our time is also limited, but if there's any of these issues that you feel passionate about, come, shoot us an email, show up to one of our meetings, or just shoot us an email, get on a call. We can help organize. If it's something around fundraising and that idea, we can help you bring that to the city if that's a palatable idea to solve these problems through, city philanthropic, like neighbors helping neighbors. So just know there are ways to do this. Yeah. So moving on from the porta potties, another question about trailheads. Residents have reported break-ins at Westside Trailhead parking lots, and one of the ideas that came up in the comments was around surveillance cameras and lighting, both at the trailheads and then even lighting along Midland Trail also came up. So are these locations with break-ins, do you guys have awareness to them? I know that would be kind of in conjunction with crime reports in the city. Police department, but curious if that's on your radar, if there is any talk of or potential for security improvement plans or budget cuts aside, funding pathways to address this.
Okay, why don't I get all the answer to your question? Yes, another unfortunate reality is we have break in any parking lot. Probably you experience them down here in Old Colorado City as well. But yeah, we have a lot of break-ins. I wouldn't say a lot. We do experience it. I think what I have seen in my 3 years here is they kind of come and go in waves. So last year, for instance, out at Garden of the Gods, we experienced quite a few break-ins, about 40 of them over about a 3-week period. Just to give you an example, those parking lots did have surveillance, they had lights, they had all those things that you would think that would be in place to deter that type of activity, but it didn't happen, right? We work with PD in those instances. We can, beef up patrols and those types of things. They can talk to those things. But the reality is I think the number one thing that we've learned is making sure people understand that they play a role, right, in that type of thing with safeguarding their stuff in their vehicle. I think most of the time we have signs out in front of our trailheads and parking lots asking folks to make sure they lock their stuff in and hide their personal belongings as well. So, being proactive in that way can certainly help. We do have surveillance cameras and lights and certain things at other parks, some of our community parks, John Venetia, Panorama Park, and it's really an unfortunate reality in some ways as well. We've seen a lot of mischief going on in those types of situations, and it's hard sometimes when you see a face on a camera to be able to use that to incriminate. So is there anything we're doing to beef up? Probably not at this point, especially in light of our budget challenges and our budget constraints. We do have, like I said, quite a few parks that do, have, cameras and lights in them. So.
Can I jump in real quick, Eric, on your Garden of the Gods thing?
Yeah,
Sorry. Kudos to Eric's team, because it was the park rangers. I mean, if you think about the PD, by the time somebody reports something, if you turn off your microphone, there will be, you turn off your microphone while hers is on. I'm really loud, so not to worry. But Eric's team and the Rangers, if you think about a PD, by the time we get our report and it goes through our records management system, a cop takes the report, a supervisor approves it, and it goes through all of the technology stuff to get merged, and an analyst looks at it. That takes a minute. But Eric's team was on top of things and noticed people coming in and saying, hey, my car got broken into. Did you make a police report? Because that makes a big difference for us to be able to track those hot spots. But they were the ones that reached out to us early on in that and said, we are seeing a marked increase in people breaking into cars at Garden of the Gods. which allowed us to start proactively data mining and looking for those things. And we were able to identify a prolific offender and take them off the streets because Eric's team was paying attention to the things. So Parks is doing good work.
Thanks for that information. So you guys do talk to each other. Following on from that, a couple parks, Blunt Park, Vermejo Park, as well as the Midland Trail, generally came up, and a majority of resident responses around maintenance, safety, and quality of life. What's the current maintenance budget look like for maintaining those trails and those parks? Anything you can speak to around the staffing levels and budget, and any improvement timelines for those specific assets?
Yeah, if there's questions specific to improvements, those types of things, certainly catch me afterwards. I'll speak just in general terms, in terms of the maintenance operations for those areas. So the Midland Trail is maintained by our Regional Parks, Trails, and Open Space Rangers. We have approximately 13 of those to cover, a large part of the city, about 18,000 acres of open space and trails. They typically get on that trail at least once a week to patrol it. We also have an urban ranger team of 4 rangers that also work along Midland Trail. They patrol that looking for camps, those types of things, where they can post those types of things. But Midland Trail will see the same type of maintenance practices it has for the last several years. We typically mow alongside the trailhead 3 or 4 times a year, and that's kind of the maintenance, along with some cleanups, some cutting back of vegetation along the trail. That's kind of the extent of the Midland Trail. The neighborhood parks over in that area, on average, so we spend about, you can surmise about $12,000 an acre to maintain a neighborhood park. That includes staff time to go out to that park and do the trash rounds, check the playground inspections, to irrigate the park, to mow the park, to do all the different things that's required in a neighborhood park. That's not going to change this year. That's going to continue. We have technicians that work on the west side. One technician's generally assigned around 6 or 7, sometimes 8 parks. So depending on what's going on, they hit those parks sometimes on at least once a day. Drive through, make a check, those types of things. So that's kind of what we're looking for this year in terms of the maintenance practices. Maintenance rate, nothing will change. It'll continue to be maintained on that type of level in 26.
Thanks, Eric. So I'm gonna have one of you guys pass the mic to Brandy as a follow-up question. So recognizing that there's budget issues, especially for this year, I don't know if there's anything more than like pie in the sky prognostication about what next year might hold for us, but considering those constraints and realities, do you feel like Westside Parks Parks and Trails are getting equitable investment when it comes to the city budget? And is there anything that you see to be able to change that? And one example that also came up was the idea of like lighting on the Midland Trail for, especially like in the winters, and that may not even be close to realistic, but I'd love to hear any thoughts you have about maintenance budget and allocation of resources.
And just to follow up, the lighting on the Midland Trail is just, kind of a nice to have, not a have to have that you threw in there at the end. Okay, just checking. Our budget has been down, let's call it the last 3 years. 2 of those 3 years we pulled out of reserves, which isn't always helpful because that's just a sign that the budget is down. And I unfortunately think this community does more with less than it always has. So what I did learn, which was brought up earlier kind of in your opening statements, is that at least 15 years ago, the city of Colorado Springs operates with about 1/3 of the amount of money of other cities our size. And I think in the last 15 years, that gap has gotten even bigger. And we are really in a place of doing more with less. So while of course I don't think that's enough for the west side, it's what we have in this community. And for the longest time, the city was set up in such a way that the people weren't necessarily paying for the services. And the problem is that it's inherent now to people that even move here. Like, well, I don't want to pay any more than anybody else is paying. But when our city was founded, Palmer gave money back when lots were sold to fund the city. And so, and Stratton gave money. Like, we had so many benefactors that made this city what it was, that it wasn't set up in a way that the people had to pay to get the city to operate the way it needs to pay. And then we lived off of that until, in my opinion, the military showed up. So then we had an infusion of all of those monies into our community. And it's only, I'm going to call it in my lifetime or in the recent past, that we've been having the hard conversation of, are we ready to get to the point that we're going to pay for what this city looks like? And I'm not saying I know what the answer to that is or how we set it up, but the math doesn't work. It just doesn't. And we're doing the best that we can, and I appreciate everybody because they know that they go to work every day and they could use another, possibly $200 million, but it's not there. So we're doing what we can with what we have, and it's really the nonprofits that make this city work. Without the nonprofits, we wouldn't be as amazing as we are. So thank you, Beth, and all of the other nonprofits in the room, because that's how we backfill what isn't coming from those services. And that's not even, gold-plated services. That's just making sure that we have proactive public safety, that we have parks. But it's balanced out with the notion that we've gotten to a point that vandalism is just what we have to deal with. Going back to the size of the city, when it was 30,000 people, you didn't lock your doors and things didn't get vandalized. So the money that you had went further. So now we've gotten to a point where we're also putting in amenities, but they're getting damaged. So instead of spending monies on new and improvement and things that we really want and need, we're having to fix the things that we just built. Mostly Benicia Park is a huge example. To me, that's in a relatively, what I would call, safe part of town. And if you ask the Parks Department, they can't keep up with it. So we are hamstringing the city, we the citizens. I'm not, obviously not people in this room. Thank you all for being wonderful behaved citizens. But there are citizens that are hamstringing the little amount of money that we have to really make this city what we need to be. And that's a long way to answer your question, but that's what it looks like from where I'm sitting.
I think there's a hard reality that was pointed out, and again, came to me when I was going through the Hey Neighbor program, that 1/3 of what a city our size would typically get in revenue. And a lot of that is, I think, what is it, about 50% of our revenue comes from sales tax, which, because we're a tourism city, it's things like right here where we are in this corridor that attracts people and blows this place up in the summer, and Garden of the Gods and Pikes Peak. So when the economy's down, when tourism is down, the budget crisis shows up, and to your point, we pay that juxtaposed with the fact that the cost of living has skyrocketed. I bought my house in 2017. I feel grateful. I can't believe how much equity I have appreciated from just having a property with free property taxes, at least from somebody that grew up in New England, where property taxes are a lot higher. So those are hard, uncomfortable realities that we as a society, as a city, have to think a lot about as residents. There's no easy answers. So moving to more of the challenges of budget cuts, perhaps, and that might be part of the theme that comes into the answers, whether we like it or not. I want to move to the police department here and talk from a public safety standpoint. And this was, again, another story that came in from a resident that completed the survey. They stated the following, that they've had gunshots outside their home, and that they called the police, did not get responses that night to show up, and yeah, that the police did not respond. They've had squatters in their yard, their house has been robbed, and then 24 hours later they get a call and say that, and the police says, they're on the case. And while obviously we don't know which case that is, and every case is unique, I wanted to highlight that from the survey and see if you could speak to the response time standards and how the city police department triages calls that come in, prioritizes them, and if the standards that you guys have, you feel like they're being met right now.
First, I wanted to touch on something that you said. You said, oh, you do talk to each other. And we do talk to each other. If you notice, some of us are calling each other by our first name, and we do all work together. And I notice people in the audience, some people I've worked with, I've worked for. I know you by first name as well. So I hope you do have some comfort level that in terms we all are working together for the city to be on top of things, the innovation, the efficiency. The efficiency is not only in the services, but also in how we use the money that you provide and that we all pay for in terms of the services that we would like to have. In terms of specifically talking about response times, we don't have a standard response time. There isn't a 9-minute or 10-minute or 11-minute response time that we have to get to a certain call for service. Calls for service are prioritized from 1 to 6. 1 would be something in progress, usually some kind of violent crime where someone is armed with a weapon and things like that. Now when I'm talking in terms of, unfortunately, I don't have those response times, let's talk about something that is very positive, that all of you hopefully have seen some gains in safety, and hopefully we are not waiting on the line quite as long, and certainly support from council, and that is our drone as first responder. We now have 7 drones on rooftops across the city. If you don't know what that is, the call for service comes in, it comes directly into our real-time crime center. And they can triage the call. They can then put up the drone and almost always get to the call before our officers do. Another thing that we have done is we have increased the online reporting system for certain crimes. Certainly there would be property crimes and some crimes that you don't have a suspect. When we first started looking at alternative response, some of the pending calls, we pull up the call screen and daily, and there'd be about 122 calls. Just about 3 weeks ago, I pulled it up, 3 calls holding across the city. So that is working for us. We have reimagined our community service officers. First, we allowed them to take hit-and-run accidents with no suspect information. Recently, they have now moved on to accidents that are non-injury. And the reason why that's such a big deal is that accidents, whether it's 1 car, 2 cars, sometimes 4 cars, they can take 2.5 hours to investigate, clear the traffic, call the tow trucks, and so it takes a lot of time. So now that is taken off of the patrol officers, and they can respond to more calls for service. The other thing, and Commander Snuggs can speak to this, we've reimagined Peak Station. Again, she said that most of you probably know that by heart. We're working that Peak Station and those concerns of really across the city 5 days a week. We now work that 7 days a week. So we hope to see response times come down as part of that, because we are freeing up officers. And Councilmember Williams, you should be getting an overview from the chief, I believe, next week about that specific topic. And we also don't do response times by district. We do it by divisions. We have 4 patrol divisions, and then they're broken up into sectors.
Thank you. So a follow-up question to Brandy here. From a staffing standpoint, and I believe I've seen the report. I know folks have mentioned to me that I believe it's the FBI or the national level has also recommended that we have over 1,000 police officers. We currently have around 780, and then you can fact check me if I'm in the ballpark, and that we're looking to have being authorized for up to 840 officers. So I'm curious what you see, how you see this working out, Brandy, from a city council standpoint, to close the gap in the officer shortage that we currently have. What has city council done to help close, push for closing that gap?
Thank you. I think,
There you go.
just need to be spun. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's definitely changed a lot that council's role is to pass the budget. And then at that point in time, we can advocate and beg, borrow, and steal. But I think that's really something that's happening on a national level, is getting those positions filled and how we get them filled. What I do think we need, and I don't know when and how it's going to happen, is having a conversation about public safety sales tax. That's really gotten to the point that it's backfilling a lot of those positions. And I think one thing that really needs to be looked at statewide, I'm not going to try to compete, state to state, is what are the salaries that we're able to pay in Colorado Springs versus our surrounding jurisdictions? Because in my humble opinion, we should be paying the second highest because we're the second largest city. But how we get from here to there is going to be very interesting and delicate, and I think that's part of it. If I can work for Police Department A and I don't get as many calls, you know, there are people that are like me, and they're like, oh, the hardest job you can ever throw at me, I'm gonna take that one. So, but that's not the average person, and I think what we're trying to do is pass the budget, fund the training academies. That was a big conversation for the budget for 2026, and do what we can in our role, and then really have that where are we headed conversation. And I saw the head nods. It's how do we get from the head nods to the checking the box, because with Tabor, any questions that involve more monies are going to have to go to the ballot. And right now, yes, your house is much more expensive than it was, and that's good for your equity, but by the same token, that's much harder for everybody else that's moved here to buy a house. In my humble opinion, I think the prices are completely artificially inflated, but here we are in this game of everybody bought as much as they could, whether, and I know this is a national conversation, whether you're a family or a corporation. Like, there was one community I was looking up 3 or 4 years ago, 4 of the houses on the cul-de-sac were owned by a company. Well, as soon as they have the monies to come in and buy those and inflate those prices, that makes life a lot harder. So on one hand, we all want the services, we want the police, but if we have to pay more for housing, there's not as much of our money to go to the city. And right now, I mean, as we all know, the math just isn't working. And I'm not saying I have the crystal ball on how to balance it all out, but when you've got these housing prices that, in my opinion, doubled overnight, that makes all of this harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, thanks, Brandy. Do you guys, is there anything you can speak to in terms of staffing, where we're at right now, how we're trending in terms of getting to a full staffing level, and whatever that means?
It's actually 8:39 that we're authorized.
I was close.
And today, right this minute, we're at 774. But we also have reoccurring academies now, meaning that we used to have maybe 1 or 2, but now we are taking applications all of the time. The other thing that has occurred is that the Civil Service Commission has allowed us now to, instead of, we used to absolutely have to have some college. We have dropped that down now to high school. I think there are only 3 police departments in the state of Colorado that still have that requirement that you have to have college before you apply. Now, the person certainly still has to be 21, but what we have found, even in the first day where we put that information out on the web, on the internet, we usually would get about 8 different inquiries about our academy, and I think it was 2 days ago that just in one day we used to only get 8, and at least that on that day that we put out that information, we got 45. Now, that may not seem like a big deal, but I think that it is. And there are lots of people that maybe only have high school education, but again, I said you have to be 21, so in between there, you know what they're getting. They're getting life experience. And that also teaches you how to communicate, and that is a big part of being a policeman. So I think, Shannon, can you think of something else? But I think that's that's huge, changing that requirement.
Thank you. I want to pause for half a second and poll the audience. So we're a little more than halfway through. A couple things I want to say is, one, if you love the questions, we want your feedback. If you're like, you didn't ask the questions that I cared about, ask harder, ask different ones. We also want that feedback. If you want these to happen more often than maybe once a year, also we want to hear that feedback. If you want to help MC this, we're also open to that as well. So, like, just know that. I'm going to save questions till towards the end. I think we will have time for a couple of audience questions, not as many as I would like, but again, that can also be something that we can also do next time. There can be a mic round. I want to take a temperature of the audience here, from a low, medium, poor, okay, and great, in terms of how you feel the city is doing in terms of meeting the needs with the resources they have. Do you think they're doing a poor job and could use a lot of improvement? Consider everything you've heard tonight and your thoughts coming in. Do you think they're doing a decent job, or do you think they're doing a great job? And so let's start. Raise your hands. Who thinks they're doing a great job? Amazing. Okay, a few folks. Thank you all for being brave to share this. Who thinks average? That's about that. Okay, a lot of folks in know. Who's willing to raise their hand, be honest, and say, I think you're doing a sucky job? Okay.
The funding.
And it can be part of the funding too. I think that is part of the complication, yeah. So thank you. A few hands raised. So there is a broad spectrum, and a couple of the questions I'm going to get to here as well show that the west side, we're aligned in what the problems are. I think there's no disagreement really around where the issues are, but what do we do about it? There's still a lot of disagreement, and I think it's really important for us to recognize that we need to have these engagements and conversations so we can come together and figure out what's reasonable and practical with resources, with values, ethics, and morals. So moving on with another, we've got a lot of public safety questions here. That was kind of the bulk of it based on what the survey suggested, what folks wanted to hear about. So thank you guys for being on the hot seat tonight. Residents shared some specific locations where they feel unsafe. Blunt Park, Vermejo Park, the Midland Trail, 19th and the Uinta corridor, about a 4-block radius around there. 20th and Pikes Peak, the Story Church area. So for those areas, you may not have the data in front of you, so I don't know if that correlates with hotspots that you see in crime reports, but would be curious, anything you can speak to those specific areas, how you approach the deployment strategy of officers on the beat, and if there's actual plans, because a lot of this relates to homeless and unhoused, to do things more than just what feels like moving people from one area to another.
That's with me, I'm sure. So yes, the areas you're talking about are absolutely known hotspots as it relates to where we typically find unhoused congregating in those areas. Ironically enough, across the city, we're tracking over 44 different places where we're seeing significant numbers. And then we have to balance that against enforcement with compassion. And so we take partners with us because they're going to be those resource providers that we have. Our role in that, in going out into those areas, is to enforce the laws of the state of Colorado and the ordinances of the city of Colorado Springs. And then we take along our partners that have those resources to help out those individuals that may want to take up those resource partners on those opportunities. I think where everybody gets frustrated is we go out, we make those contacts, and then we leave them there, right? Because constitutionally, if they haven't committed a crime that necessitates taking him into custody at the El Paso County Criminal Justice Center, we can't make them go if it's public property. We can cite them for the crimes that they're committing, and we can offer our resource partners to come with us and try to avail those resources to those individuals. But we're bound by the Constitution and what we can and can't do in forcing people to leave places. Additionally, when private property allows people to be on those locations, they have the right to do that, and we can't make those people leave if the private property owners say it's okay if they stay here. And I think that's where some of the frustration comes in, is acknowledging what we can do as CSPD, but then don't forget we also have a housing and homelessness response department with the city that is looking at that bigger picture and what we can do and what resources do we need to get together. What resource partners do we need to bring to the table and have those conversations? Because I don't think anybody has the answer to totally solve the unhoused problem. If you do, I'm all in, call me.
Housing First has been successful in Salt Lake City and in Finland. It's been shown to be extremely effective.
And then we have the financial issues that come across with those things and what resources the city can provide. And then we rely very heavily on our nonprofit partners to come in and support those endeavors. So it's not an easy conversation. There isn't an easy answer. And we are absolutely aware of the issues and the places that you're talking about. Our peak station team is out. They're hitting those areas weekly and doing what we can and providing those conversations and those resource opportunities to those individuals.
Thank you. So I want to follow that question up with Councilwoman Williams here. So you identified 44, you said the city's tracking, police department's tracking 44 hotspots. And I know the last census in time showed that the unhoused population has increased. I know there's lots of challenges with the HUD standardized, collection time number. That number's been believed to be pretty underestimating of what the reality is. And so this is a chronic issue. You identified well. I think you stated it really well. There's complex issues, especially from a private land ownership standpoint. If there's whether it's a church or any sort of private property that allows folks to congregate in that area, for good or for bad, and things spill out, there's nothing that can be done. And then there's a crime that's not, visually committed, that there's not evidence of committing, there's also little to be done there. So that said, we rely very heavily on our nonprofit sector to provide these resources. That said, it still feels to a lot of folks like it's just the shuffle game. Like they're gonna just shuffle around between the 44 hotspots, get cleaned out one area, go to the next, and it's just a never-ending cycle. It's expensive for city resources. So I'm curious, Brandy, from your perspective, do you feel like the city is essentially just like chasing the homeless from one park to the next, doing does nothing to resolve the issue? Do you agree with that? If so, or if not, what are you asking the city to do differently, and why?
Thank you for that. I wish I was a little bit older, and I'm not going to tap Jim because he might have more history, but this issue was addressed differently, let's call it throughout the last 100 years. And whatever the something was that happened that was deemed how we approach this was inhumane, in my opinion, has led to where we are today. So if we can't, I'm gonna call it bring dignity, and you can't force people to do things, it's a really hard place to be. It's hard to get, sober. It's hard to, get to the point that everybody's got worth, and it's breaking my heart because I don't think what we're doing is the right answer, because what we're doing is following the laws that we can, but it's not necessarily solving the problem. And I told Pat that I might tag him for this one, because one thing that City Council did was help fund Clean and Safe, and one of their charges is really to do a pilot program for downtown Colorado Springs and see, are we shuffling to the same 44 different places? How do we get people to the resources that they need? Are they accepting the resources that they need? And then if that's not happening, then where does that land us? And I don't know if you wanted him to help answer that, but it's going to inform our answer, and he's right up here up front if you want to let him chat.
Sure, yeah, we'd love to, yeah, please.
I can speak loud.
Okay, go for it.
And
who are you, Pat, with?
I'm Pat Rigdon. I'm with the Downtown Partnership of Colorado Springs. Actually retired from CSPD a few years ago.
Give him a mic, please.
Give him a mic.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, everyone. But yeah, Pat Rigdon, I'm with the Downtown Partnership of Colorado Springs. So I came on in June of that organization to lead a project called Clean and Safe, which really has several components, but its charge is to just make downtown a cleaner, safer environment, more welcoming for everyone, including tourists, residents, and visitors, and even the homeless population. So it really has components that consist of enhanced security, ambassadors that greet people, guide them to dining, but also do cleanup. I have a cleanup crew down there. But then Beth is here, and we partner very closely with Home of Pikes Peak, and we have dedicated outreach workers downtown to hopefully get folks the services they need. So we are learning a lot that we are sharing with the city, and Old Colorado City is right in the same boat, and we're going to share everything we have with Old Colorado City too, because it's very similar in my opinion. But what we're finding is that number one, you can't really lump all unhoused population into one thing. Most of them are trying their darndest to get out of that situation. They're utilizing resources. They're at Springs Rescue Mission or Catholic Charities, wherever. But there is a handful of people downtown. There's a handful of people in all Colorado City. They're severely mentally ill. They're addicted. They can't even have a coherent conversation with you. They don't know what they're doing. And frankly, there's not a lot of consequence. These are the ones that are doing the behaviors that scare people, that keep people from coming downtown, from people coming to Old Colorado City. And so we're finding that there's kind of a gap in our system that really doesn't deal with that population well, because, you know, you can charge them criminally, but frankly, there isn't very much consequence for them. They're back on the street quicker than the cops can get done doing the report. You take them to the hospital on a mental hold, they're out again, they make sure they're medically okay, not gonna die tonight out on the street, and they're back in the same. And so it's a frustrating problem. We're finding you kind of have to mitigate the behaviors by having a large visible presence of security, working with PD, but even the ambassadors and the outreach workers help that presence to try to make a dent in it. But I do think that's the bottom line, and Beth can certainly talk to it. But I think our takeaway so far is we have this problem, and if we can figure out how to solve it, you know, we're going to be doing great things. But it's not something that we're in a position to say do this and it's going to go away.
Thanks, Pat. I want to share two statements that came in that are diametrically opposed from two residents that completed the survey, that really highlights how divided our community is on this issue, which I think speaks volumes to the gravity of the issue that we have at hand. One quote directly, just taking verbatim, was clean all these people out and make it safe to live here. That's what they want the city to do. There's another one, simply chasing the homeless from one park to the next does nothing to resolve the issue. So with these both being statements from constituents, and there was statements around housing first as well, and like that we need to be leading with compassion. And I think Pat pointed out something really important about there are very different, like the unhoused span of a broad spectrum of individuals. And many people are just trying to do their best. And what that looks like, what their capabilities are, might be very different from one person to another. So with that, Brandy, like what does a real solution look like on your timeline as council member? Like what could we do differently?
I think one of the things is I just microphone enough.
Yeah. Get the static you want to check.
Yeah.
Hold it until it turns off.
When I was on city council last time, Amy Cox was our chief of staff, and she was absolutely fabulous and wonderful. Unfortunately, she's only one woman, but I think one of the things that I can do moving forward is, as you may or may not know, the mayor has a new chief of staff, and regardless of what you think about Wayne, he loves getting things done. So Wayne Williams is going to be the new chief of staff. And I think really sitting down with him and Amy and the providers and having the conversation, and I really, you're absolutely right, it's a spectrum. But I feel like, and Beth, you can point this out if I'm not right, but I don't know whether you target them all, whether you start at the top. In my humble opinion, I would like to target the people who had a house yesterday. If they had a house yesterday, if they had an apartment yesterday, if they had a safe place to live yesterday, what could we do as a community and how could we rally those resources so that tomorrow they're back to where they were? Because we had a woman that was coming to city council who was homeless. But by the time she'd gotten to that point and told her story to, essentially the entire community, she was so afraid that she didn't even know how to take help. And I put her in contact with Amy and they talked as much as they could, and then eventually she fell off because she didn't trust anyone. She gotten to the point where, mentally it was all about survival. She was going to do everything to survive day to day to day, and she wasn't comfortable. And if you know Amy Cox, she's a sweetheart, she wasn't comfortable even bringing Amy into the fold. So if there's a way to take those resources and really help the person who needs a new tire, who needs something on their car, and because their car broke, they can't go to work, and then because they can't go to work, they can't pay their bills. If there's a way to triage that, then I think, in my opinion, that at least takes a portion of it out, and then I'd work my way down. And that could be completely wrong, but it makes sense to me. but I think we could at least have the conversation. And I think if you lay that over with what Pat's learning on Clean and Safe, we'd really figure it out. And then, you know, Housing First keeps coming up, there's a price tag with that, how do we fund it? Like, these are all conversations that need to happen, but there's not a crystal ball, not a crystal ball, there's not a magic silver bullet that's gonna solve this entire problem. But I really think with a change at the leadership level, you can have those bigger conversations and really look at it holistically, and that's what, you know, Wayne has a reputation of doing.
So I know that, I think it was maybe 2 years ago now, there was before Amy Cox came back, there was a citywide meeting about the unhoused downtown, about an hour and a half long. The room was completely packed and filled. There's a lot of interest in that topic. Actually, let me get a raise of hands. Who feels strongly that this is a topic that we should spend more time working to solve? Okay, most of the room. So we could have a whole session on this topic, and I don't think I can even do justice at scraping the surface tonight. So my ask of Brandy, to put her on the spot, is if we were to organize through OWN with folks here that are interested, a West Side focused discussion with Amy Cox, with you as our representative, and staff from, say, the HOT team, would you help participate and make that happen to advance this?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer his question.
Yes, I can generally get people in the same room, and then we can have that conversation.
And bring service providers.
And
Yeah,
bring
you have
service
to be at the
providers.
table.
Yep. Yes, and I'm gonna, I don't have those contacts, I know they
Stay
exist.
afterwards and give them.
Perfect, yeah, we will make sure that happens. Call OWN for it to make that happen, so
Can
we'll
I-
work for Brandy on that. Thank
Do you mind if I add a few remarks?
Please.
That one's off. Yeah, that one's off. Let's see if this works. Better?
So
Okay.
far, so good.
Can I make a few comments, not related to trying to solve the solution, but what I didn't want to leave today without at least telling some of what the city, and we've been working with other partners, has done internally, which I think is at least tell you what we've done and what we've been doing to help address some of the cleanups and things that are a result of that issue. Is that okay? I just, you know, the city's actually, we've done a lot of things in the last couple of years, specifically the last year, of reorgs and partnerships between different departments and divisions to at least help the backside of it as far as cleanups. Now, to give you a couple of examples, we've worked with Downtown Partnership with some of these. You know, just quickly, a couple of years ago, you know, we had, like I said, code enforcement and quality of life, which was the camp cleanup teams and things. Those were in planning, which is kind of the planning department. You know, I don't know if you know what planning is, but it helps with like entitlement review and those sort of things. Well, you know, 10 years ago, that made a lot of sense because this issue wasn't as big. So one of the things we did, the city and the mayor did last year, was move that into public works. And the reason is the camps, you know, the cleanups 10 years ago were, you know, you could get a little trash grabber, pick up a piece of trash, and you could do a cleanup. Now the cleanups take heavy equipment, you know, front-end loaders and bobcats and roll-offs and dump trucks and things like that. So we have shifted some of those responsibilities in public works to give it more resources, and that has really helped. And it does not solve the problem. I'm an engineer and I run public works. I don't think I have the answer to that problem. There's people that know that issue, but I can help do the cleanup and do the logistical things. The other thing that we've been doing is working with you know, the police department and we've been contracting outside agencies to help patrol like parking lots and facility-owned assets to help have more presence. We specifically did that actually in Colorado City with the parking lots. We actually have a contract with a private security company to patrol those. And some of that is to help with the presence and help with those, you know, just like downtown. So we also have strike teams that go into certain areas and address things like, you know, specific cleanups, graffiti, abandoned vehicles, and we've done that across the city. And I have a few numbers I just want to tell you, just so you understand the scale of this. Last year we had 6,906 abandoned vehicle responses. So we have, you know, every day we are taking care of abandoned vehicles. And here's just a few facts for you. We cleaned 24,500 graffiti tags last year. So we have a whole team that goes and does graffiti. So the problem is huge, and I understand that, but at least we're have some resources to do that. Hopefully that was helpful. I want to give you some of the things we are doing, and not just.
Yeah, and I look forward to a follow-up conversation on that, because I also, and this is, I'll say it's my personal opinion, not of anybody else's here that I know of or an organization, but I see the cleanups, et cetera, as like the reactive response that's triaging, and I think there's a lot of energy that we want to focus on, like how do we get so we don't have to have like 24,000 cleanups. Yeah, not just right? And if we can go up the pipeline, then we can address making that less resources as well needed. So we could keep going forever, but we're getting close to time. I want to keep folks from falling asleep and get a few minutes to meet with staff and talk here in person. So I'm just going to ask a couple more questions. One is related to the Greater West Side Community Plan. So that, I remember participating in that when it started in, I think 21, 22 as part of the city's undertaking of the master plan. That's been dormant for the last couple of years, at least I haven't heard any progress on it. So when can residents, I'm just gonna speak loud, all right. When can residents, this is a question for you, Brandy, to share what you know. When can residents expect a draft review and comment on that? And how are you making sure this leads to funded actual outcomes, not just another plan that sits on the shelf?
Thank you. I think dormant might be an understatement. So if you could explain what your involvement was and then why you feel it went dormant or how it went dormant, or I touched on it a little bit before Gail left, more of a planning document. We don't have anybody from planning here, but I think that's more of a planning question. But since I have your undivided attention, if you want to give me the history, since I think the last date was like 2022?
Sounds about right, yep. Yeah.
So were there meetings held to bring all that to fruition and then it just disappeared into the ether?
I can tell you that's what it feels like from myself and others' perspectives. I know I participated in that meeting, maybe it was I think it was at the Westside Community Center that it was hosted. That's on the website. I haven't looked at the website in about a year. I know Southeast Strong was the first neighborhood district to get a plan worked on and put together. So since that meeting at the Westside Community Center, I'm unaware that there's been any progress made.
Well, I know Southeast has a plan, and then City Council chose not, I don't know if it chose not to vote on it.
It hasn't come before council
Yeah,
yet.
it hasn't been chosen to come.
Or made it to the agenda.
Brought
planning.
on.
Yeah, so there has been,
Okay.
they won't.
It's on its way. It's coming to us.
So Southeast Strong, what I'm hearing is ready to get, is in the final stretches of getting
Correct.
ready for City Council.
Yes.
So City Council has to review it and endorse it, approve it,
Correct.
these plans, and then behind that is the Greater West Side.
But it can be, I'll have to talk to the planning department and see how it got stalled in action.
Okay, I think we would love Owen and folks to see what a follow-up, if you can get information from planning and help push that along.
Yeah, I think if one of them were sitting on either side of me, we would have an answer for that.
Okay, so we'll follow up on that answer for folks in the audience. Thank you for that. OCC Development Authority, we talked about that at the beginning. I know that sat dormant for about a year or more after voters approved it. There's also the complexity that there was a mill levy that would fund it, failed. So there's, if I understand correctly, there is a development association similar to the downtown partnership and the downtown association that was created, but we don't have any funding approved for it here in the West Side. You're the only required council seat on that board, so you are on the board, correct? So can you speak to your vision to make it functional, what you're doing to support that on the board, and whether there's a campaign for mill levy coming up, and how you're going to bring that organization to life?
I think part of that falls in the same bucket as the West Side plan. So it went to the ballot in 2024, and as you mentioned, the entity got put in place, but the mill levy didn't pass, and I was not sitting in this seat at that time, And I've heard all sides of the story as to I knew about it, I didn't know about it, nobody told me about it. I knew all about it, and I think it's the best thing since sliced bread. So then, I don't know what happened in January or February or March. If anybody in this room knows, then they can fill in that gap. So at the point that I got into office, then I was explained all of the aspects that are the OCC DDA. And then just when I was getting ready to put that board together, I ended up in the hospital. So that didn't help at all. And I didn't need to give a half-hearted attempt at that. So we finally put the board together, and Adam was working very hard behind the scenes to put all of the documents together, and I think we're getting to a point that it's moving forward. So I think the biggest thing that needs to happen, and this is a great venue for it, is that everybody needs to know what it is and how it may or may not affect them, and get that message out to the community. And I think that has started and will continue to be a conversation.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, if you can bring anything forward, whether it's that we can put in even our newsletter about the organization and the importance of whether it's a mill levy or anything that you need residents to support.
And I think, as you mentioned before, I sit on the board, so I am not going to speak for the board. So if anything comes in front of OWN, it will be from the board and not necessarily from myself, because I don't want to make it look like I speak for the board. It is a board of directors. I am one person on it, and that information will come from the board itself.
Great. Yeah, anything you can do to get the board to bring something for us, we're here to support you. All right, I'm going to do one. I'm going to wrap this up for the sake of time. So, I'm going to ask everybody here, just 1 minute, 2 things. What's the biggest takeaway that you got from tonight? And what's one thing that you learned that maybe you're going to try and influence differently or put more resources behind in your capacity within your department or at the city council level? And I'm going to start with Brandy, and then we'll go to the parks, or the departments.
I learned that you can fill a room. So the news KOA came to interview me yesterday and asked me a series of questions. And because you're all in this room tonight, in my humble opinion, you get to watch the movies. So how I describe city council is that we sit there for 9 hours so you don't have to. And staff can attest to that. We had a 9-hour meeting not too long ago. And we get to watch the movie. And then when it makes it to the public, you're lucky if you get a trailer or a snippet or some little piece of information. So thank you for being here tonight to watch as much of at least the public safety, parks, and public works movie as we can bring to the table. But I'm happy that you're all here, and I think one of the things is the alignment. What we're feeling at the city is the same as what the community is experiencing. So there's not a big gap or a huge disparity in that. So it's really nice to know that unfortunately they align, but they do align, and I think the community is going to really come together and rally. And again, you're all here. I don't have all the answers when it comes to these. That's why there's this entire room full of people, and I think together we can bring it forward. Like you said, if they had known that something was happening with the porta potties, then maybe they would have rallied around that. But at the end of the day, I think we need more long-term solutions than raising money for porta potties one budget conversation at a time. So I think it's a really holistic, but happy that everybody came out tonight.
As a follow-up, and as the second half of that question, you're always saying is, what's one thing that you're going to do for us based on what you heard tonight over, say, the next year?
Oh, I can definitely figure out what's going on with this West Side Action Plan.
Okay.
Whatever fancy name it's got. Since,
All right, you're going to get the call on West Side Action.
right. I think that would be very helpful and very pertinent to everyone in this room.
Awesome, thank you. If you want to pass it over to Public Works.
Sure, yeah, I appreciate it. There's definitely a lot of interest in Colorado. I think we knew that there would be, and so we'll certainly follow through with the public communications on when that project starts, and we'll start to get feedback from residents, and there'll be a long public process for that. And we certainly want to, get everyone's input. I mean, that's going to be a crucial project for this area. I think that was a great conversation, listening about the kind of unhoused challenges and things related to that. I tell you, that's everywhere, obviously. So I'm not sure I learned that was an issue, but I knew it was. I would say, we have a lot of resources for citizens to use to contact us about things like camp cleanup sites, traffic issues, traffic signs, potholes, just those things. I think most of you are probably pretty involved, so you've probably heard about this, but we have the Go CS app, so you can use that. We have our website for Public Works, and on the website there's a phone number, and I'll leave some my cards you can call. Please tell us of the issues. If you see a sign down, if you see a camp that needs cleanup, if you see, just issues. I can tell you we're a 205 square mile city. We get a lot of people say, hey, I saw a stop sign was down. It was down for like 4 weeks. We probably didn't know. I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but we didn't know. It's 205 square miles. So please tell us. We will get on it. I can tell you that if an issue in Public Works gets submitted through the phone, through the app, through the email, whatever, if it's not assigned a work order in 5 days, it gets put on a list, and that list gets emailed to me. So it doesn't get to be done in 5 days, but it will be assigned, okay? And we will get to it. So we are very interested in getting and responding to the issues that you have. So I would leave with that. Please tell us if you have issues. We work for you. So please tell us.
Thank you. I will plug the Go COS app. If you don't know about that app, it actually does work. I've submitted potholes, I've submitted camps, I've submitted broken fences. It works.
Yeah, can you
it's
catch
really
up?
easy too.
The one challenge I hear about GoCOS is people will say, I had a specific issue and I couldn't find it like in the option. Doesn't matter. Pick an option, put your problem. Every submittal that goes through the COS app goes to a person that then makes sure it's directed to the right department or division. So, I don't know, like if you have a very specific issue and you can't find it, put it in there. We will reroute it to the right person. I know.
Good evening. Again, my name is Kim King, and I'm currently the Acting Director for Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services. Again, thank you so much for being here tonight. I do want to kind of tag on to a couple of the comments. Again, same thing with park issues. Go COS works for us as well. Definitely, we share those issues across the departments too. You can take your best guess. If it's not the right department, we'll get it to the right department. But we need to know we have the same issues in terms of the 19,000 acres of parkland, over 300 miles of trails. We can't see all of it all of the time, and you are our best eyes and ears for letting us know what's going on. The other thing I wanted to tag on to was the idea of alignment and take it at a little higher level, because I know Eric will talk specifics. We are wrapping up our park system master plan right now, and that is the guiding document for the Parks Department for the next 10 to 15 years. Many of the things, we've had thousands of citizens provide survey input and really be part of focus groups and telling us what's important to them. Many of the things you've spoken of tonight were very high on those lists. Homelessness and safety and security and restrooms. So I wanted to encourage you, we'll be having kind of our strategic plan that'll lay out for the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, what we'll be working on. And we would love to be able to have your input and feedback. Is this the direction we should be going? Another key piece of it is really going to look at the opportunities for funding for the park system, because we realize that we are to the point we need to help ourselves because we are underfunded. The city as a whole is underfunded, but we need to see, are there other ways we could creatively fund the department to be able to address the needs that keep coming up. So really, definitely check out our website, the city's website. We will be putting out that additional information, those opportunities for additional input. So thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Kim. Eric?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add is thanks for coming out tonight. I appreciate it. We have a lot of staff that are really passionate about what we do. We share a lot of the same concerns and challenges that you all. We see those things, and we try to do our best working through those. As what's been mentioned, we can't see everything. So I just appreciate some candid follow-up. If the GoCOS isn't working, we're going to give you our contact information. We have ways that you can reach out and get maybe some more in-depth answers to some of your questions. And I would just offer that up tonight, that don't go away without a contact, that we can follow up with you and give you some more detailed answers if you need.
I echo, thank you very much for being here tonight. We're all different walks of life, different ages, different lifestyles. Some are retired, some are still working, some male, some female, whatever you choose to be. Here's the thing, we all often concentrate on our differences, and I think we should concentrate on our similarities. And when we do that, walls will come down, communication will increase, and we can move forward together stronger.
Well, unshameless plug, don't go to GoCOS if it's a life-threatening emergency. Please call 911. GoCOS is not monitored 24/7. We cannot get officers to you if you go that way right away. Remember 911 for life-threatening emergencies. But what I'm going to take away from this is going back to Amy Cox, the chief's, or the city's chief housing and homelessness officer, and continue that conversation that it's a multifaceted approach. It's not just one part of the city that's going to be able to address this issue, and that we all are in it, not to steal the utilities, but it's how we're all connected and we're all in this together. Shout out to Beth and Homeward Pikes Peak, who is incredible in being part of our outreach providers and always out there with us all the time, doing everything they can. So we're going to continue that conversation and try to find, I don't know if a solution is the right word, but to keep moving our progress forward throughout the city of Colorado Springs.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so with that, again, can we give a round of applause to as well as yourselves, the audience. Brief?
Yeah, quick question. You mentioned the GoCOS app multiple times. Yes. There's a dark zone over behind the Safeway.
That's because that's not city.
We put in multiple requests adding that to the added, because I thought it got annexed, part of the whole west side. Because there's dark zones where you can't report stuff on the west side.
Can I ask you a quick question? You mean like service cell phone? I mean there's no...
No, so it's blocked out. You can't, the GPS...
Oh!
No man's land.
Oh, it doesn't work in the
app.
I'll have to...
Trying to submit it from like the Midland Trail behind the Safeway.
Gotcha.
Pick Safeway and not the Midland Trail.
So the behind the Safeway.
Thanks for that. Yeah, stick around and ask these questions with folks. Just corner them so they can never leave. Sorry, we're out of...
Just one question on behalf of the businesses
yes.
here. As a business owner here on West Colorado Avenue, I know one question from a lot of the business owners is for the police department. We've heard that the DART team has been discontinued down here. Is that correct?
It's not discontinued. So we merged our homeless outreach team and our downtown area response team into our peak station team, so that we could address the issues across the city, because the issues weren't just specific to downtown or Old Colorado City or South Nevada. And so we combined them to give us more people to respond across the 205 square miles, but acknowledging that those areas have some unique challenges, and so we still have officers that we are calling our quick response team. So when those issues are popping up, they're actively monitoring our calls for service to see when those are popping up, and they're jumping on those, but we also are still using our patrol officers to respond to those.
So previously we had contact information for a DART team, so when we have someone come into the storefront, we're having issues, whatever it may be, we can contact the DART team. Is that still the same number, same contact info?
Yep, still use that same contact information. So now there's 2 sergeants instead of 1 for our daytime one, and so they are still monitoring all of those contact abilities, the email, the phone numbers, and so they're actively monitoring those so they can send those quick response teams to address those.
Well, that's
Awesome.
good to know.
I appreciate
Last time my
you.
nose got broken by a homeless guy.
All right, this has been awesome. I appreciate you all for coming. I don't want to keep folks any longer that are looking to sneak out. Thank you all for coming. Please send us feedback. Stop by the OWN booth. Let us know what you want to see more of, what you'd like us to do differently, and let's look forward to our next meeting focusing on the unhoused. Thank you guys again. Folks are here.